Have you ever wondered why certain photographers gravitate towards specific lenses? Why Joel Mayer, which thrived in the chaos of a 28mm, while Sol Leiter painted with a distance of an 85? It's more than just gear, it's self-expression, and in that realization I found something deeper. Photography wasn't just about capturing the world, it was about understanding myself. I used to believe that choosing a lens was a matter of preference, that the right lens would magically transform my work. But what I didn't know back then was that every focal length would change not just my photography, but also how I saw the world and how I saw myself in it. It all started when I was 22, just exploring street photography. Like many beginners, I grabbed an entry-level camera with an 18 to 55mm kit lens. Back then, all I cared about was making images, and rightfully so. I didn't care about focal lengths or composition. I just wanted to shoot. But then, like many beginners, I started comparing my work to others. How did they make their work so incredible? And after some thinking, I thought I had the answer. It must be the lens. Determined, I bought my first telephoto lens, a 70-200. Suddenly I was able to photograph people from a distance, comfortably avoiding interaction. At first, it felt like an advantage. But my photos, they were not really getting any better. I was an observer, detached from the story, always on the outside looking in, not knowing exactly what I was looking for. Something was missing. So, like any young photographer, I got obsessed with gear, not exactly knowing why, and I did the only thing that made sense to me at the time. I sold everything and upgraded. A full-frame camera, a new 18 to 55mm lens, and a renewed excitement. For a while, my images did improve, but I still wasn't getting the photos I envisioned in my mind. So I learned about aperture, depth of field, and bokeh. I started developing a taste for dreamy cinematic shots. I picked up a Sony 50mm f1.8, and that's exactly when my approach drastically changed. If you are enjoying the video so far, hit the like button and consider subscribing with a bell. I shot with that nifty 50 exclusively for more than a year. By the end, this focal length felt natural. The world through the viewfinder matched exactly the way I saw life. I wasn't too close, and yet I wasn't too distant. I was present, and at some point it did feel like I was thriving. But again, something deep inside, probably my curiosity and my excitement for photography, kept me pushing. You see, I was comfortable with that 50mm lens. Maybe too comfortable. So after a while I started wondering, am I actually growing? At the time I was actively studying and exploring the work of other photographers. I was drawn to some of the classics like Sol Leiter and some contemporary photographers like Joshua K. Jackson, Craig Whitehead and many others. Their use of longer focal lengths, especially 85mm, fascinated me. They created intimacy, mystery and drama all at once. And just like that I found myself craving those longer focal lengths again. Like my 70-200, but this time with a major difference. Now I knew exactly what kinds of photos I wanted to make. I picked up the Sony 85mm f1.8 lens back when I was shooting with Sony, and I was blown away. The compression and the shallow depth of field gave my photos a sense of weight, and the distance added intrigue. My photography felt different. With a shallow depth of field of f1.8, I could isolate my subjects and turn them into true protagonists within their own scenes. Every little detail came to life. Shooting with this lens was an incredible experience. But what I took from this lens wasn't just the ability to create beautiful street portraits and abstract compositions. After shooting with the 85mm focal length for 2 years straight, I realized something deeper. Focal lengths don't just shape our images, they shape how we see and interact with the world. The 85mm lens allowed me to take a step back, observe and compose my photos in a way that felt natural to me. I was an observer, yes, but I was also the director, carefully selecting my subjects and making them stand out within their own static street movies. But over time, my relationship with photography evolved. I grew tired of focusing in just one subject, one protagonist framed from a distance. Sounds familiar? As I studied the work of photographers like Joel Meyerowitz and Fred Herzog, I felt a pull towards something different. Bigger frames, deeper layers, and stories that felt more dynamic. I no longer wanted to capture isolated moments, I wanted complexity, movement, and interaction, scenes that felt more true to life. And the only way to do that was to step closer and open up my frame with a wider lens. Enter the 35mm focal length. In the beginning, shooting with a 35mm lens was a struggle. Jumping from an 85 to a 35mm lens was like moving from a small, clean and tidy apartment to a bigger and messier one. Suddenly, my frame was filled with too much, too many elements, too many distractions. My instinct to see the bigger picture was now tested. But I struggled, I adapted, and I grew. Slowly, I started capturing the frames I had envisioned. Busier frames with more people. Sometimes they knew each other, other times they were complete strangers. In both cases, I searched for those fleeting moments that the chaos of the streets found order. It wasn't easy, but it was incredibly fun. Of course, I didn't stop there. I wanted more. So I went even wider. I got a 17mm lens. A 17mm lens for street photography. Insanity, right? Well, I thought of Gary Winogrand and Bruce Gilden, photographers that thrived in the intensity of the wide angles. And something clicked. Instead of forcing the lens to fit my vision, I adapted my vision to fit the lens. I stepped in closer, embraced distortion and captured scenes I never would have attempted before. And it wasn't just about a wider field of view, it was about stepping outside of my comfort zone. I made the challenges of this focal length my allies. If a subject was too small, I stepped in closer. If the frame looked chaotic, I searched for the right angle to bring order to the composition, to make it make sense. And in the process, I managed to capture one or two decent shots. But in the end, it wasn't about getting amazing photos. It was about pushing myself, trying something new, and learning from the experience. But I think another important lesson wasn't just about the focal length. It was also about the character of a lens. Not every 50mm or 85mm lens is the same. Some are sharp and clinical, and others are soft and dreamy. When I picked up the Fuji X-T3 and the legendary Fuji 35mm f1.4, I realized that a lens can have a strong personality. The images felt different, almost nostalgic, and yet undeniably modern. And then I made another important realization. Photography isn't just about what we see. It is about translating how we feel and giving our photos our own aesthetic. And of course, this didn't just apply for the Fuji 35mm f1.4, it also held true for the Fuji 50mm f2 and later the budget-friendly Viltrox 56mm f1.7. We're going to talk about both of them in videos very soon. Through this journey, I didn't just learn about lenses. I also learned about myself. I realized I'm a big picture guy. I love seeing how complex, chaotic scenes can come together in a harmonious way. The streets are unpredictable, but I get inspired by finding rhythm within the disorder, isolating stories within the noise. I learned that composition excites me more than fine details. That I embrace change even when it's uncomfortable. And while it is unconventional, I've discovered that my favorite focal lengths to capture these moments are the 50 and the 85mm. I also learned that real growth comes by stepping beyond the familiar, by challenging myself with new perspectives, new experiences, and new ways of seeing. So if you are wondering which lens should I buy, the answer is simple. All of them, but not all at once. Pick one focal length, live with it, learn from it, and let it teach you about your instincts, your habits, and your own style. And when you're ready, challenge yourself again. The journey never ends. Now I would love to hear from you. What's your favorite focal length and why? And if you want to learn how I mastered the 50mm focal length, click and watch this video next. That was all for the guys, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will see you on the streets. Bye bye.